Hey there. So yesterday we went on an outreach over to Uptown in Minneapolis. I go out there every Saturday with a group of people, and one of the things that we prayed for before we went out there was from Luke 15, how Jesus tells the parable of the shepherd, the good shepherd, and how he would leave the 99 sheep that are there in his flock that he's found to go after the one lost sheep. And we prayed that God would reach those lost ones. It's really easy as an evangelist to really think of God going out to reach the people who've never known him, the people who've never known Jesus before, and be really excited about that, which he is really excited about that. God does that, but he also has this incredible heart for the church. He has this incredible heart for the sheep that have been in his fold and then have wandered away. And so we were praying for those yesterday before we went out. And we got to this bus station over in Uptown, and I met this woman, and she had grown up with the church, felt really close to God. When she became a teenager, she got into boys, she got into partying, she was drinking all the time, doing crazy stuff. She's now, I don't know, probably in her early 50s or so, and her life is really cleaned up, has a job, is taking care of her kids and that kind of thing, but she's never really fully come back to the Lord. Like it's kind of on the back of her mind, but not like a, foremost pursuit for her. And I said, what's keeping you from surrendering your life to Christ again? And she didn't have an answer for that. And she wasn't quite ready to make that step, but we talked about a lot of really good stuff. I had asked her if she'd read the Bible before. She'd only read a few books from the Old Testament. And so I told her about Jesus and about how the whole Bible is really pointing towards him. In the Old Testament, you see how salvation is really found in the Lord. And when Jesus shows up on the scene, you see the Lord, you see God in this person, in this human being, and how salvation is in him. And I talked about how he had died on the cross, but really he had set up his own trial for that so that he could sacrifice his life for us. I talked about how he rose from the dead, how he, talked with his disciples right before he left. And when he left, he sent his spirit to be in them. And then they had, all these people who turned to the Lord, and just all the different things the disciples did, and how they went on to write much of the New Testament and everything like that. And she was super excited. She was actually really excited about that. I gave her a New Testament. She has a Bible, but the New Testament was like a nice little nugget for her to read up on. And we talked for, I don't know, a good 20 or 30 minutes while she waited for her bus. And then meanwhile, another team that we had out there on the streets, they felt specifically like God wanted them to go up to this guy in one of the homeless camps. He was sleeping, and they really felt like the Holy Spirit was saying, wake him up and take him to McDonald's and buy him food. And so they did that. They woke him up and said, hey, do you want some McDonald's? He's like, sure. And so they went and brought him there. And they ended up talking at least an hour, maybe even two. It was like almost the whole time that we were out. And he had grown up in like a Finnish Lutheran church and had known a lot of the stuff about Jesus, knew a lot of the religious type of stuff, but really wrestled with this idea of guilt and shame and what's the difference and what do they mean. And we really talked with him a lot about how guilt was there, not just to make us feel bad, although it can play that kind of role for when we do the wrong thing, but ultimately that it would point us to God and how we need him, that we feel guilty, that we might even feel shameful, but ultimately that's to point us to finding our forgiveness and salvation in the Lord. And he was really wrestling with that. We talked about like everything. He lives pretty close to a church that a friend of mine runs up in Minneapolis, just a few blocks away, actually. And we gave him information on that. My teammate connected with him on Facebook. We're going to keep the conversation going with him. But it was just a real life lesson in how God has such a heart for the people who grew up with the church and have wandered away like those sheep that were with the sheepfold at one point but left, and how Jesus would leave those 99 sheep that are still there with him to go after those lost ones. So God's going to keep doing these things up here in Minneapolis. I want to keep sharing them with you.